All right. So this is the panel where we talk about the difficulties of working with your parents, right? That's what we have the next. That was the only question that I had, and now they have 45 minutes to just let it all loose. Anirak, we'll start with you. No. I had I had the pleasure of moderating the panel earlier today, and your father was actually on the panel. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and one of the things that we spoke about with for the most prominent members of ICA and people in the industry is, like, what are the opportunities that you're most looking forward to? What are the biggest opportunities over the next, 5 years? I'd love to get our generation, we say that generation, but it's our generation, right, of perspective on there. What are you seeing what are you most excited about over the next 5 years? And typically, we would do a ladies first thing, but because there's nerves involved, I'm going to actually make you go first, and I'll let the ladies go next. How's that sound?
Well, talking about opportunities, I feel that definitely in our industry in the next 5 years, we have to talk about artificial intelligence and technology. That's something that is coming up in the world, and that's something that us as an industry, I feel especially us in the wholesale industry, wholesale sector, have not capitalized on. And that's one of the things that we have to find a way, and we have to look into ways and opportunities of how we can use technology and artificial intelligence like personalization, customization of products, and help us in our industry and in our business going forward.
Excellent. Maria, what about you?
I really feel that nowadays consumers are really looking to go more than traditional ways of just buying diamonds. So I feel that we as an industry have the potential to really be the next big thing because, people want something different that shows their character, and I feel that colored gemstones can really do that. And it's like, people don't want to just buy something just to show off, it's more like they want experience, they want character, and I think that colored gemstones can do that.
And when you say the next big thing and people and generations, when we talk about the future, one of the things that we were talking about even earlier in our previous conversation was like, are we talking about the next generation? Are we talking about this generation? Or, we talk about the next big thing, or is it something that's prominent and there's opportunity for us as an industry to capitalize on right now today? What's your perspective on that?
I just think that, okay, we'll never be able to compete with the diamond industry, but nowadays people, they're buying all these man-made products which have no memory or feeling to it, and I think if you can market the colored gemstones to make it something that has experience, that has a feeling, character, rubies, romance, and all this, then I think that it'll definitely be different, but I think that it can be, yeah.
Absolutely. And Billy, what are your thoughts? What are you most excited about in terms of opportunities for the future?
I agree a lot with what Maria is saying. I think we have a fantastic product that we're working with, actually, which is almost unique. I know of very few things that I can buy, that I can own, the way that I buy gemstones. I don't think I own anything else that took millions of years to produce, not by man, but by Mother Nature. And I think one of our issues in the industry is we haven't told that story enough. I actually think we're working with something incredible. Now we have all this modern technology, we're more connected with the rest of the world than we've ever been, and I think this is an opportunity to tell our story. We're a pretty small industry, we're full of family businesses, and I think we've been kind of fragmented, not really working together as a group. But now more than ever, now that we can travel more, now that we can communicate, I think this is our opportunity to tell that story.
Absolutely. And Brian?
Yeah, for me, I think the opportunity in the next 5 years right now, I wouldn't say internet because internet is kind of over for us, but I think internet has provide us very special platform that we can connect to the customer. We can, right now we have many of applications that we use in the mobile that we can, the customer can contact us quickly. We can respond very fast, and sorry.
No.
Yeah. I think I'm very excited to see like this opportunity, whether we can turn them into opportunity for our business in the future, because I think one day like we need to, using this platform. Yeah.
The internet of things, the internet of everything, social, digital, e-commerce. I would venture to say that the majority of people would expect a panel of us on stage right now to be so focused on e-commerce, so focused on online sales, so focused on social, and the preconceived notion may be that that's our main focus. But I don't necessarily think that's the case all the time. What are your thoughts on that?
I think at our level, where we're working with, we're not the retailer, we're like the wholesaler, and but it's difficult to put inventory into something that's, e-commerce, because call it stone, every stone is individual. You can't just, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, let's be really high tech,
Yeah, and so what is that, and is it even the point of interest for you as business leaders to just go the e-commerce route or direct to consumer?
For me, when I was talking about e-commerce and technology in the first place, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that we can sell items online or do e-commerce to generate sales. I'm thinking about the idea of e-commerce and technology for other aspects of our business, like inventory management, like advertising, like building a marketing campaign together. I'm looking at it from another aspect rather than just point of sale or trying to sell our product online. Because like what Maria said, our items as wholesalers of rubies and sapphires, we're dealing in items that people want to see before they buy. It's not generic. It's not an item that you can get 3, or you cannot get a 2-carat ruby, 3 of them that looks the same. It just doesn't work that way. So it's not an item that I feel that selling online or doing e-commerce would be the way to the future. I'm thinking of technology in a different aspect in our business.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to the point of content and branding and marketing and advertising. And Billy, you've had an impact both in written and messaging and writing, but also visually in photography and those things. Like, how important is content, branding, marketing, messaging? Heather was up here talking about the importance of what branding really is from experiences from some of the biggest brands in the world. Where is the opportunity in this part of the industry, the wholesale part, the business-to-business part of the industry when it comes to content, marketing, messaging, visuals? What do you see as that?
I think that visuals are extremely important. I mean, we are in a visual industry. If it weren't for the fact that gems are so beautiful and rare, they really wouldn't have the value that they have. But at the same time, we have to be careful. You were talking about digitization earlier, and I think the 3 of these guys work in companies that sell stones, but I work in a lab, so it's a little bit different for us. And the trend I see is towards people talking about digitization, and I also see people talking about the commodification of gemstones. A lot of people are talking about, let's get charts and graphs to separate all the gems into little boxes and grade them according to color and price, and I think we have to be really careful about that. I don't think we should move too far in that direction. We need to use these digital tools wisely to tell the story of gems, because that's where the real value is. They're not commodities. They're like works of art. Each piece is unique. I can't just order, like you said, I can't just order a 3-carat ruby online. If I have an unheated 3-carat ruby, I'm the only person in the world that has that exact stone. And so it's really important to tell that story, not to just, separate them into boxes as if it was a mathematical formula or something. But I do think that we can use these tools to get people in touch with, okay, these are the places that they come from. This is the story of a miner in Mozambique picking a ruby out of the ground. This is the story of a family in Mogok who's been in the business for hundreds of years, and we should tell those stories with these digital tools.
Absolutely. What is the next step for that? It's, everybody here has mentioned so much about experience and technology and things of that nature, but I think as you get into the inner workings day-to-day of a business, it's not just a switch that all of a sudden, oh yeah, let's do technology, let's integrate messaging, let's integrate experience, all of these things. What are the tangible steps as you've stepped into the family businesses, as you've stepped into these companies to help lead and shape the future? What are some of those tangible steps that you've taken in that direction and maybe even some of the misconceptions of what it actually takes to move in that direction?
I would definitely say education. So to get people to understand what we are doing and to especially educate the staff and the people at the retail stores who are in contact with the end users, that's very important to get the end users to know where these items are from, where the rubies are mined, what it's like in the mine. Traceability and education are the key aspects to that, to educate as Altaf mentioned this morning about millennials, we cannot get away from that because, believe it or not, by 2035, millennials are going to be the largest spending population in history. So we have to think the way they are thinking. I'm a millennial too, so the way we are thinking, it's how we are thinking and the way that our consumer habits, our habits are changing, and these days we value experience more than just items and things. So how do we move towards that direction, and how do we cater to that? Is through education, is through building a story, I feel. And I think that's really something, especially us in the wholesale business of this gemstone sector, have to focus on.
Absolutely. Bro, what were you going to say?
Yeah, like Billy said, like gemstone is the thing that are natural made. It's very rare, and right now I feel like the customer have some kind of wrong perception toward the gemstone. Maybe the value right now, like for our generation, actually gemstone is like very rare, but we are more value on like other materials stuff. So I think the education, like Anurag said, it will be very helpful to educate, the customer that the things you get is not only the stone, but it's come from the natures, like for many thousand years, and it's only for you,
I really feel that there's such a big disconnect between the product and where it comes from. And I feel that, why does people have such a bad misconception about mining when, for example, everything in an iPhone needs to be mined as well? But it's because these big companies, they've been able to market it as, changing the perception of all these consumers. Whereas actually the gemstone, it's coming from nature, that should bring value. And people don't understand that actually these mines, like where the stone is coming from, it adds value to all the communities in that places. And like, what about an iPhone? It's being mass produced in and it's just in one factory and that's it. But there's value in the fact that the stones, there's so many supply chain and everyone in the supply chain is benefiting, and that's something that should be marketed more in the colored stone industry.
When we talk about marketing and advertising, that's one of those things where it feels like sometimes the onus of that and the ownership of that gets passed around, whether it's like, okay, is it the wholesaler, the dealer responsibility to create these stories and tell these stories? Is it the retailer? Is it the designer? Where does that responsibility sit, and how do you see it for your businesses in the future? Where does that evolve to? Like, what are you looking at when it comes to marketing, storytelling, branding for your businesses? And is it different than where it's at now?
As Billy touched on earlier about being fragmented, I think we have to work together. It's not the retailer's responsibility or our responsibility it's our responsibility as a whole. It's the whole supply chain have to work together.
Do you see marketing, and let's put it even into finances and economics, do you see marketing budgets now, when you talk about marketing and advertising budgets to wholesale companies or gemstone dealers and things like that, it's a line item that doesn't necessarily exist today.
There are no global colored stone marketing campaigns.
Yeah, there really needs to be though.
So who pays for that in the future?
We have to form some sort of a system that we can all work together and build a global marketing campaign together. Diamonds have done it. We have never done it. There's no ruby marketing campaign that is for a country or for a sector. It's just everyone is doing their own marketing campaigns.
Right. So that's something that we get a lot of head nods up here that we're going to. Does the labs, does the technology space play into that as well, Billy? Or where does that sit in the industry? Where do you see the future of the labs, especially around transparency, traceability, all of these things that we know our generation and the next generation care about? Where do you see that? Like, what is your perspective on that?
I think it's something that consumers are wanting to know about more and more. It's something especially young people like ourselves are talking about. And so it is something where we're going to have to educate people. I mean, for us as a lab, we issue reports, yeah, but we do a lot of other stuff too. We create books, we give lectures, we give talks, we reach out to people on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and all this stuff. And I think there's this huge demand for information. I think throughout history, a lot of our trade has kind of been shrouded in mystery and secrecy, and it's time for us to sort of move past that together as a group, not just labs, not just dealers. I think the time of looking at dealers and labs as being kind of enemies or on opposite sides, I think that's over. Like, we need to move forward together. And I think a lot of young people today, what I find kind of surprising is a lot of people, are concerned about sustainability. They're concerned about the ethics of this business. And what I find really surprising is when I look at the marketing messages that are being sent to them, the stones that are being sold as ethical are the stones that are produced in a factory that are using all kinds of energy. There's stuff that's man-made in a factory, large industrial production, and that's being marketed in a lot of ways as being the ethical, environmentally friendly choice. And it's so different from other industries. When I go to the grocery store, if I saw some vegetables and one package was marketed as man-made vegetables, GMO vegetables with pesticides, with hormones, and I saw another package of vegetables, which we have now in Bangkok, wrapped in banana leaves, and it was organically grown, naturally grown. Which would I choose? I would buy the organic vegetables. And
But
so,
the man-made bananas are cheaper, so much nicer.
but are they more ethical? Are they more sustainable?
Right, that's the interesting piece, and I think that in our conversations, it's a topic. Well, let me ask you this: is it overstated, though, from a consumer perspective? The assumption and the things that we hear are that millennials and Gen Z and everybody wants this, and they care about sustainability, and they care about ethical sourcing, they care about all these things. Is it overstated, or do consumers in our generation and the next, are they voting with their dollars? Will they vote with their dollars? I just want to get your perspective on that, because a lot of things assume that, and we talk about it, but do we think that it is going to be the future? Is it something that we see dollars attributed to in decisions?
Yeah, I really believe that it's the future because, if the younger generation, like I was reading a magazine the other day and it was 12-year-olds.
Wait, a print magazine?
It was
a paper
the
magazine.
BK magazine for Bangkok. And they printed an article about 12-year-olds going around Bangkok saying no to plastic. And if that's the future generation and they're the future generation, they're obviously going to care about sustainability, so it's a really big issue. I know that right now I feel that it's a lot of talk, but I think that in the future things will
It'll
be
come
done.
to realization,
Yeah.
What other things, hot topics, do you feel like are getting a lot of buzz, a lot of talk right now, but are easy to talk about and hard to implement in the businesses, especially in a traditional multi-generational business that we're a part of and an industry that we're a part of? Is there anything in specific there? What about technology integration in the business? You mentioned AI and artificial intelligence, that the industry hasn't played in that space yet. Why is that, and what are the initial steps that you would like to see taken?
Personally, we can talk about technology and artificial intelligence, and okay, I'm going to talk about now family businesses from generation to generation. So of course, say family business from, say, like I'm the 6th generation in the business, so I'm just going to take myself. And then things have been done the way it has been done for the past 4 or 5 generations. And we are the first generation that's living through technology. Technology was invented the way it's going today in our growing up and in our growing up. So now we have seen technology in one way, and now trying to explain or trying to do things or trying to rock the boat, I would say, with our parents or grandparents or people who have been doing this thing from generation to generation and has successfully done it. It's not easy. It's always, you have one aspect, but hey, but you're trying something new. Their model has worked. It's always worked.
Yeah.
It's worked and it's done good. So now, do you want to rock that boat in a heavy way, or do you want to gradually rock that boat and slowly integrate technology? So it's always, that's definitely a challenge I'm sure every young generation entering this business, family businesses, would be facing.
I feel that in all other industries except ours, they put in so much money into marketing. And
Go ahead.
yeah, like at least I've heard like 10% at least of the revenue goes into marketing. And I don't feel that in this industry people are doing that. And I feel that younger generation, everyone is in the digital space. And if you're not, then people don't have knowledge about your product. So then they're not going to be interested about it, and they're obviously not going to invest in it. So I feel that for us in the future, everyone needs to be, you don't need to e-commerce you don't need to buy and sell, but maybe just be present, like,
Absolutely.
so people know about you.
Yeah,
Younger generation.
They said if Google can't find you, then you don't exist. Now it's if Instagram, Facebook, WeChat can't find you, you don't exist, or at least you're not relevant, which is even scarier than non-existing, right, for a business. Freya, what are some of the things that in your business have you seen change and transition and evolution sort of been successful for you all?
For you mean from the other generation?
Yes.
Yeah. Because right now that we're talking about the technologies, like our company, we adapt some technologies, not for not for sale, not for e-commerce. We just adopt it. Just it's for our
Internal use.
internal. Yeah. And right now we are putting every stone into the stock using the barcode, and then we adapt them, and the older generation is also agreeing. Right now, everything is a lot more easier for us, and we can manage the stock like more accurate, and like we can get it very faster. Like if the customer asking for the certificate or the video of the stone, we can get it right away. So yeah, right now everything is like a little more easy, and we just renovate our website for 2 years ago, and we try to put the products on sale in the website, even though right now it will be very, very difficult, because not only the customer want to see the products, but because the price and the many variety of products so it's harder for them to understand if they only see the photos than it's to see the stone. But we trying. Yeah.
Absolutely, Billy.
Yeah.
As another young leader in the industry, from the lab side, what are you pushing for? What's on your list of evolutions and change, and what are things that you've been able to successfully push forward thus far?
I think what's really interesting about gemology as a science and as a field is that there's so little that's been done, actually. There's been
What do you mean by that?
There's a lot that's just never been studied at all. Like where you just can't, you'll Google it and you can't read an article about it. A lot of the work we do in the lab, still today, the number one instrument that's most important is the microscope. And when I was a student, and I've gotten really into that, looking in the microscope, taking pictures of what I see through the microscope. And when I was a gemology student, when I was a student in college, if I wanted to know something, I would just Google it. And, you'd get 2,000 hits or something. You'd get all of these kinds of images. And when I was a gemology student, I would Google, inclusion in a ruby. What am I seeing in a ruby through the microscope? And I would get, 3 photos or something. I mean, it was nothing. There's just so much that's never been studied. And so for us, everything's interesting. Everything's exciting because it's never been done. We got a new instrument in our lab less than a year ago, a micro-Raman, that can identify crystal inclusions in the stones. And in the last few months of using it, we've already identified 2 types of crystals that have never been found in ruby and sapphire before. And that's just in a few months, So for us as lab gemologists, it's an exciting time. Every day we can find something new.
In an industry that has been, let's call it, slower to adapt to tech, you're in a space that is probably the most forthright or most forward-seeking when it comes to technology in the laboratory, right? It's literally based around science. Do you feel like the labs have evolved in a way, in a pace that they should? Do you see that they're now catching on the curve? What is your opinion personally on that?
I think so, definitely. My parents are gemologists. They've been in the business for 30 or 40 years now, and when they started out, a lab was basically basic handheld equipment, and the most advanced instrument you had was a microscope that cost a few $1,000s. now we're running a series of tests, all different kinds of spectra, all different kinds of instruments for every single stone we test. So it's come forward a long way since then.
What are some of the hurdles? You mentioned, do we want to rock the boat and potentially fall out of the boat and get a little messy, or do you want to slowly change and slowly rock the boat a little bit? What are the things that, business owners and multi-generational family business owners that are now looking to their children to lead in the companies? What are some of the things that have helped in transition and growth and in leadership that you've experienced? Let's talk about the good things. What are the things that you've seen your parents do that have helped you play a role in the evolution of the companies?
I would say in our business, especially, like I'll talk about personally, so basically transparency, integrity, and these type of values that parents generation to generation have ingrained into young generations. Like I grew up just hearing the values and the integrities and just do things in a transparent way and be open to the customers, be open to your clients. And yeah, just basically be transparent. That's the values that got passed. Mm-hmm.
I feel like because of trust, like my parents obviously trust me, so I feel that just because we're related, so it's easier for them to trust me in what we're doing. But I feel that with the gemstone industry, it's difficult because that's why there's so many family businesses, because it's difficult to get new people into and be able to trust them. And I feel that that's a big barrier for us to be so high tech.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Do you think it'll always look like that, or do you see it changing or evolving outside of just family businesses and leadership?
I just feel that there needs to be much more transparency in the products and all of that for it to be able to be bigger than just the family, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, if we talk about, and we even heard about in the sort of country status reports this morning on the panel, about the worry or the lack of the next generation and young people being interested in coming into the industry. Well, we obviously represent young people within the family that's in the industry and were born into the industry. But do you see, your friends of your age, do you see interest there? Or what's keeping people from seeing a pipeline? If you own a laboratory, or you own an academic institution, or things of that nature, and you're trying to get other young people that were not born into the industry but interested in the industry, what's keeping that from happening? Or do you see that as a real problem for the future still? And anyone can answer, but
I think
Britt?
I think the problem that like blocking the new generation to this industry is that there are lack of education in terms of like understand the stone, because like I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in this industry, because stone have like many quality. They have the top quality, medium ones. They have the heated, they have unheated, and when for me, like my friend like Thai people, they're seeing ruby as like very cheap stone, because in Thailand, because we have rubies like very long time and mostly they are heated, so they do not know the difference between heated and unheated, the value of them. So like if like the lab or RCA like this one, they educate the customer, they will understand more and they will appreciate more.
Yeah, and so that goes back to the messaging conversation that we were talking about earlier, not only to our customers, but to people that would be potentially interested in the industry inside as well. What do you think, what are some other things that, when you look at, or other things, you talked about trust, you talked about transparency and values, are there other things that are important to business leaders and business owners here that are looking to transition their business and looking to the next generation of leaders in their business, whether it's family or non-family members? Are there other things that you've seen successful in your own businesses, and other things that they need to focus on in that period of transition and growing leadership?
The questions for so long, I'm just
Billy,
trying to
what do you
put
think?
it together.
What other values or what other things have made growth, your growth personally, what has affected you as a young professional and a young leader in this industry? What are the things that have helped you succeed and grow?
I think for me it's about passion and about finding something you really like. And, you know, again, we have something that is so incredibly interesting with these products that we have, and we just haven't done a good job communicating that. You know, actually, when I went to school, first of all, I couldn't really study gemology. I went to school in the US. There weren't even universities teaching gemology then, so there was just so little in terms of going in that direction. Even though my parents were gemologists, I couldn't study it. I didn't know a lot about it, you know, and it was only when I started looking through the microscope that I decided, okay, this is what I want to do, because I was so interested in what's there. I mean, it's millions of years of history that you can hold in your hand, and I don't know what else can give you that. And so we already have this really incredible thing, and I think having that passion, you know, we're a lab, but we're a family business too, and both of my parents are incredibly passionate about gems, and I think when you have that, the other stuff will come later, you know, because that's a motivation to do what you love. And so a lot of days for us in the lab, it doesn't really feel like work. It's not really a slog, because we get to do what we like. And I think that pushes us a lot, is just this shared passion for gems.
For me, I feel like my dad, he's like a yogi, like he loves the gemstone. I feel like I fell in love with that too. Like I feel that when I look at the gemstone, it's like, it brings me back to nature, you know, and I feel that that's something, a big opportunity for our industry right now, because people care about the sustainable stuff. So if we are able to, as an industry, bring that part where the gemstone is bringing you back to nature, it might be something that's in the future to promote.
What about on the other side? What are the things that you sit back and you say, these are blind spots? Or what are the things that you see as potential worries, or things that you see personally as a worry for the future of the industry, specifically our industry in colored stones? What does that look like to you? What are the things that you say is like, we have to get this right, otherwise that's trouble?
I mean, like like this morning, I think my dad and Pramod touched on the supply decreasing, and then Sean's graph was seeing the decrease in supply in the supply of rough. So that's definitely a threat, and that's something as for me personally, I'm scared of. Like, what if we don't find new deposits? What if there are no more like not sufficient amount of rough coming out? So that's always a worry, and that's something, especially after hearing and seeing Sean's graphs this morning, that is definitely a worry.
Anything else? Other worries? Go for it.
You can go first.
I don't know, for me, in my own experience, I just feel that it's so hard to find like cutters in the industry. Like, I don't know any young people want to be like, I want to be a gemstone cutter. Like, it's just not, you know, and I feel, how am I supposed to find someone, you know, because I don't know how to cut a stone, like, so where am I going to find that? That's something that I'm a bit scared of myself.
Yeah, so the next generation of pipeline outside
so it's,
of, yeah.
like education as well about that, so that there will be in the future people who admire the stone so much that they want to come in to become a cutter.
Absolutely. Billy?
One of my big worries about the future is climate change. And I think that's something we hear a lot about on the media. And it worries me kind of on two levels. One is just the big issue that this is something we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to face this. Water shortages, you know, ecological disasters and stuff like that. But in terms of how it affects our industry also, you know, I think in these kind of turbulent times, people don't necessarily want to go out and buy a luxury product because they're worried about other stuff. At the same time, you know, actually in a way, gems are a wonderful sustainable product, and we just need to do a better job explaining that and telling that story. I mean, what's more sustainable than a gemstone? Any other product you buy, it's gonna rot, or it's gonna go bad, or it's gonna get used up, and a gem could be pristine for the next 1,000 years. You don't need to replace it. You can just keep reusing it. You know, that's something that's sustainable. But
Unlike
I think it's
the
something
man-made
we don't.
bananas.
I'm sorry?
Unlike the man-made bananas.
Exactly, and this is something that we could be talking about that I don't think we are talking about. And it's also something that I find the story of gems really interesting, because a lot of people, I think a lot of people's families who are here in this room, and a lot of people I've met in the trade, have their families have been in precarious situations before, and gems were their way out. It was their way to escape bad government or environmental disasters and stuff. You put your gems in your pocket, move to another country, and start over. And I think that's a wonderful story about gemstones. So in a way, I hope that people can learn more about that side of it.
Like for me, like I think right now the one that worry me is that because before, like Billy said, if you think about investment, you will think about the gems like in the top 3, right? But right now there are many choices for the customer, the investor. Like now we have like funds, we have bonds, we have many things, and with the interest that drop down in the graph, and so it's a little bit worried that in the future they still, like think of the gems as an investment, or it's gonna, still be, yeah.
Let's go on the other side now, and as our time kind of winds down, what if we're sitting up here 20 years from now, and all of you are the leaders in your businesses when you're leading this, and we're sitting on the same panel, what are you most excited about your business as leading and running and operating 20 years from now when you're sitting up here? What's the number one thing you're most proud about? What is the number one thing you're most excited about? And it could be something that's totally different from what we're seeing today in the business, or it could be something that's just a continuation of the tradition and the heritage.
I just really think that in the future, people will see value in stuff like, as she's saying, like the stone, where it's not, you can't just make it, I think that people will come back to that. It's like, I feel that there's a cycle in history always of, like, vintage things comes back into trend, and I feel that gemstones will always be there, but we just obviously need to market it. I don't think that we should turn it into something like completely, not true to what the product is. We just need to tell the story better, and yeah, that's what's exciting for me.
Anurag, 20 years from now, and we're sitting having this conversation, what are you most excited about? What's your proud moment? What's your most excitement about your business?
I mean, just dealing with what I love. I mean, these, like, as Billy, as we have touched on a few times, we have spoken as a young generation. I mean, we are not dealing with man-made items. I mean, business can go up, it can go down, it can go up, it can go down. We can have trends like, sometimes we talk, sometimes people are negative, oh, business is slow, but we are dealing with items that took millions of years to create. We are not dealing with an item that you can walk into a factory and recreate. That's why I always think that the gemstone industry can never die, because we're dealing with something, it's already there, it's coming out of the ground now, but it's been created. We're dealing with an item that's absolutely spectacular. That's one thing that every morning I go to work, that's what I think about, the beauty of these gemstones, and that's what keeps me excited in the business. And 20 years down the line, I'm going to be thinking the same thing, because,
Billy?
I agree with all that. I think that we already have this incredible thing. We have a product that's basically immortal, almost, and we're just lucky to be the custodians or the guardians of it for a very short period of time. And I think what we all can be doing better is just sharing that. I think so many of us here in the room are passionate and understand that, but we just need to share that better with the rest of the world. And that's what I want to do.
Brian?
Yeah, what excited me in 20 years from now, like right now we are a little bit like old-fashioned in terms of technologies, but 20 years from now I'm very excited to see how our industry is gonna adapt to them. Like how can we use them in our business? So that is very excited.
Excellent. Well, I think based on our conversation today and based on the information that we've all shared and talked about, it seems like the future is bright and exciting, and that as much craziness and as much conversation is around change and evolution of technology and things of that nature, I think when you look on it and you look at it now, it comes back to the fundamentals, and I think that's what's encouraging to hear from each of you, is that the fundamentals haven't changed, the values haven't changed, the implementation is coming at you at a pace that's digestible versus like make all these changes and rock the boat all at one time. So I just want to thank you for your time, thank you for the wisdom on this, and encourage you to keep pressing forward. And I would encourage everyone here at Congress to You know, I know it's family, and most of you know everybody here, but it's encouraging to spend time and talking with not just the next generation, but the current generation of business leaders in the room. So can we give our panelists a round of applause and thank them for their time and their expertise in sharing. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben. Another great panel that you've run today. And thank you very much for our young set of panelists. Superb information that you've imparted. We look forward to a bright future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.